Hi everyone. Hi guys. How are y'all doing today? Welcome back to my channel. And today I want to talk about loyalty, not to anyone else but yourself. All right. So let's jump right in. It dawned on me lately, like in the last couple of months, and I talked to my friends, I talked to family, that people, and it's just like over the years of conversations coming back to me, and I am going to be upfront with you guys. I have not matured, or I should say that the thought process um, of the mind for me didn't really come to fruition or come like very clear until I was like in my mid 30s, right? Because I thought I had it all figured out in my 20s. I wanted to share how I doubled my income from my regular 9 to 5 in the last 2 years. So 2 years ago, as you guys know, I work at a law firm. I now work as a docket clerk, and what a docket clerk does is we are basically the people who calendar the dates for the firm. We help the firm stay compliant. We make sure that dates, promotions, tips, discovery, all of that stuff is calendared, dates are calculated. We have to stay on top of the judge's rules. We have to know some of the CPLR and when they apply to the case that they're working on among various jurisdictions across the country. So I worked at a litigation support firm. I started working there in 2015, and it was downtown Manhattan, downtown Lower Manhattan, actually. Um, and I started working there in 2015 as an account manager. Now, I had no idea what that was, but based on my background as a paralegal before, and I only worked as a paralegal for about a year and a half. I have an associate in paralegal studies. I worked as a paralegal for about a year and a half. And I left from doing that to working as a legal secretary for a restaurant group that was so toxic that my second week in, I started looking for work. In any event, I saw this account manager position and I applied for it. Based on the description of the job, I thought I'd be a good fit. I applied. Um, they called me, but they also told me that they don't think, this is what the guy who called me at the time told me. He said, I don't think we could pay you what you'd probably be looking for, but we're going to have a new opportunity coming up soon. So I'll keep your resume on hand. Usually, when people tell you that they're going to keep your resume on hand, 99% of the time, in my experience, they don't call you. So forget that. So I keep looking. And when I am looking for work, it's a 9 to 5 job. I'm constantly tailoring my resume. I keep 2 copies of my resumes. I keep 2 in Word and 1 PDF. And I keep 1 tailored specifically to my legal skills, and then 1 tailored specifically to like a customer service support role, just because I worked retail and administrative roles for so long, working through college, and then prior to that I only thought that it was fair that I put that in there, that I had 2 resumes to support those 2 fields that were my strong points. So I was working a temp job at a mortgage agency in Long Island, and I got called by this company. Again, a litigation support company. Some of you watching who know me probably know exactly what exact company I'm talking about. I am not going to say the name, but in any event, the same guy actually called me, and I went through the interview process and I got hired as an account manager. Now, when I first got hired as an account manager, they hired me paying $40,000 a year. This was in 2015, and I thought that, whoa, coming from making what I was making, which was very, very low 30s to high let me see, anywhere from between 28,000, 31,000. Now I'm making 40. I felt good. I was like, all right, I got this this stuff handle. I'm just going to climb from here. Now, I struggled to to adapt to that job. And I'm going to tell you why. So I went in there not knowing what an account manager does and what I learned an account manager does. So you work in a group of 3 people. They have, so what the agency does, let me just start off by saying what the agency does. They support law firms. Okay, some of y'all watching might know these agencies. They support law firms. So they have court runners, which are people who take documents for law firms and file them in various courts, Supreme Court, Civil Court, Family Court, and they bring back the stamped copies, or they come back to the office and they drop off something that got bounced back from the court because it was incorrect. They also do process servicing for these law firms. So they have process servicers that work, all through and around New York City and New York State. They also had process services that worked in New Jersey, Connecticut, and also if the law firm that we're working with wanted something served out of state and sometimes out of the country. So we also did that. We also asked for adjournments by, handing in the stip and so on. So what they do is they take someone like me, an account manager, and they give you a list of law firms with maybe 100 firms. Okay, that's your firm. Now, these are your accounts, and your job is to coordinate filing for them in the various court, process service for them, answering their questions. And in my first, I would say 3 months, I struggled because I thought the training was inadequate. I'm learning new software that I've never used. I'm handling emails coming in by the dozens, and I am handling anywhere at the time when I just started between 50 and probably about 70 phone calls per day. And my work hours were 9 to 5. You get an hour lunch, but you hardly had time for lunch. But I said to myself, I am going to learn these skills, because what you learn is, if you didn't already know, you know what a motion is, you know what a stipulation of discontinuance is, you know the different types of motion, order to show cause, and so on and so forth, service of process, a 30-day notice, a 5-day notice, so on and so forth. You get it. So I learned this. And guys, I mastered it. When I say that I mastered it, in my first 6 months working there, I got a raise. So they gave me a raise by $5,000. President called me to his office one day, and I'm always just like, damn, what I do? He calling me down the hall. I went, and he told me how hard I've been working, and I've been getting really good feedback, and he thought it was only fair that I got an increase. So they gave me an increase to $45,000. That only made me work harder. When I say work harder, like, I became what they called around the office the guru of being an account manager. So now I got even more clients. So now my client list is at 150, and I don't mean 150 lawyers. I mean 150 law firms. Okay. And I did that, and then another 6 months I got another raise, put me at 15. Then another 6 months I got another raise, and so on and so forth. And that was the first time that I could say that, okay, this is going to be my career, and I am going to take it, and I'm going to run with it. But also I wanted to excel at it, and I did. Probably about, like 2 years in, I got called into a meeting with the new president, and the company changed hands by now, and there was someone new running the ship. He was an asshole. And he was not a fair asshole, and I did not like him. And he knew I didn't like him because I told him in those exact words. When he would buy, the office lunch and stuff, I didn't partake. I always had my lunch because I'm not here for pizza. So I got promoted. He called me up with the head CEO of the company one day, and they said, hey, we're opening a new location in Long Island, and we think you'd be the best person to run it. I'm looking at both of them like they smoking. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, we figured out who you could take for your assistant or pick somebody from the office. I'm like, why me? There's been people here working this job for the last 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years. There's some nepotism going on there, and they know the job. And some of them actually called me to the side and asked me why I was chosen for the position. I don't know. I was just told this is what I'm going to do. So I took that office manager role along with the account manager role, and I went out to Garden City, and I worked there. So now I'm the office manager And I had probably a rotating list of about 15 process servers that come in. I got my notary, which is how I became a notary. Got my notary license, and I started notarizing anywhere from 150 to 250 affidavits per day. So there would be my assistant would print them out. I would sign, stamp, make sure it's corrected. If it needs correction, I'd let her know what correction it needs. She'll tell the New York City office, and just like that. So now I have some of the biggest firms that the agency handles as my clients, and they were nothing short of demanding. I learned a lot about lawyers in my time working as an account manager, but I also worked in a very toxic environment. So toxic that when I was pregnant with my son, Louis, I got into a big tiff with the president. When I say big, I even recorded him in a conversation, because I'm like, he got me fucked up from the floor up, right? I am nothing if not loyal to myself. And I am the type of person that will cut my nose off to spite my face and breathe through my mouth. I'm a mouth breather. All right. So what he thought he would do, which what made him angry was, now I'm pregnant and now I'm going to take time off work. And I knew it, but he couldn't say it because that's illegal. And we worked in the legal field. But what he did was he tried to make my life harder. So I was like, all right, you want to make my life harder? I'm going to make your life harder. So I got my doctor to put me on a half schedule, half in the office, half work from home. He hated that, but he couldn't not let me do it. My plan was go on maternity leave and find a new job. When I was looking for a job, I wasn't sure how to turn the skills that I now have as an account manager into something else than an office manager. What I knew for sure was I did not want to be an office manager, because now I have a newborn and I actually wanted to be a more present mom, right? I couldn't be in demand the way I was prior to now having a newborn. I couldn't be the person answering email and text messages 7 days a week, all times of the day and night. I couldn't have process service showing up at my door to pick up work, drop off work, sign affidavits. I couldn't be answering clients at any time when lawyers are up at 2 a.m. because that's when they work best to drop a line and ask a question or reach. I couldn't do it. Or people on the West Coast who, the time difference, I did not want to do that. So even though while I was on maternity leave, the company did what I only can describe to be stalk me to see when I was coming back to work. In any event, I made a decision after being on maternity leave for 5 months. I took the time to update my resume. I saw the type of jobs that were out there, and I did not want to be a paralegal. Again, I just didn't. It was just not for me. The skills that I learned as a paralegal were great, but I did not want to go back to being a paralegal. What I did decide to do after looking at the job market was, now I'm making 60,000 a year. 65. When I left the account managing, I was making 65 a year, and I had to fight for that 65 because incoming douchebag decided that he had to see how I work before he gave me the raise to be an office manager. Y'all saw how toxic that was. He promoted me to run a whole entire location and then told me that he has to see how I work first before I got a raise. So eventually, probably like 90 days passed, I got a raise, but the amount of back and forth that it took to get that $5,000 was not worth it. But the whole time I was planning to leave. And when I was leaving, I said, you know what? I am willing to take a job making anywhere from 60 to 65, which is what I was making. And I said, I can take the pay cut because I know that I am very good at what I do, and I'm going to work my way back. Now, I've developed friendships at the company. I talked to some of my coworkers. Some of them, actually, one or two of them had just given birth to around the same time I did. And I remember this one lady said to me, she was like, why would you leave? Like, you just had a baby. This is a job that you can, they're flexible. If you need to take your baby to the doctor, which you're going to need to do, what are you going to do when you go to a new job? I said, well, I guess I'll find out, because I believe that as long as I'm doing my work, a company is going to be flexible. Now, was I sure of that? No. But a friend of mine who I used to work with, who we're still friends to this day, shout out to Bobby, told me about a docketing clerk position downtown. It was literally 2 blocks from the agency I was working before. So I was on Maida Lane, now I'm on Wall Street. I took that job as a docketing clerk. Not knowing what a docketing clerk does, the job paid 60. I counted with 65. They gave me 65. Um, the skills that I had as an account manager transferred seamlessly into being a docketing clerk. And I knew that when I applied for the role because I saw the description of what the job was. All I had to do was now learn a new software, which was actually quite easy, and I excelled at it. I excelled at it. The law firm I worked for was a good firm. My only it was a good firm. It was a big firm with many offices throughout New York City, in New York State. My only complaint was I busted my ass and they did not like to pay. And what I mean by that was they didn't like to give raises in comparison of the work that you put in. And I thought that was unfair. But I also decided that after my first year, I would give no more and no less than what you pay me for, right? I'm not going to not do my job, but I'm not going to go above and beyond because I did that. For instance, they let go their managing clerk, which is the person who runs the department over the docketing clerks, which you probably heard of the managing clerks. So they manage the cases of the firm. They really just, keep the firm afloat, I would say. And you work as a docketing clerk under that person. And when their managing clerk was let go, they didn't find someone for like maybe more than 6 months. And I jumped into that role. When I say jumped in, I was kicked in, pushed in, because they had no one. No one gave me any update of what was going to happen now. So I had to self-learn what it was I'm keeping eye on the time because I'm working from home and I'm on lunch. I want to make sure I don't go over my time. So I jumped in and I did the work. So not only did I work in the office, I also make court runs. And guys, if you're from New York City and you're watching this, or you're not from New York City and you're watching this, I want you to look on the map. Wall Street. I would deliver papers to the Bronx Supreme Court. I would go from the bottom of Manhattan all the way up by Yankee Stadium to deliver papers and take my ass back down to Wall Street. Okay? I will go to Brooklyn. I will go to Manhattan. If I came to Queens to go to court, I was not going back to Manhattan. But go to the Bronx, depending on the time I'm coming back down, I'd go back downtown because I was just that type of a worker. In my almost 30 year, I would say maybe about 2 years and 9 months going in, it was time for my review. And I saw my raise, and it was maybe 2%. So between the premiums, I'm paying $275 every 2 weeks for insurance premiums. Plus, I'm adding money to my 401k and then taxes, trying to check after all that come out. I come home with like $1,500. Nothing. I'm putting in all this work and I'm not seeing where it's going. So I called a meeting with the office manager and my manager. And I expressed my feelings about, not being paid adequately and having all these glowing reviews. And you know what they said to me? He said to me that if all the docketers underneath him worked the way I worked, they would have no problem. And that I was a very, very good worker. They loved how I stepped in when they didn't have a managing clerk, and then when they got a managing clerk who had a medical episode that was out for months, but they really can't pay me anymore. So I said, okay, thanks. That call, I got off and I started looking for work, like immediately started looking for work. And it's the same thing, people who I made friends with, people who I talked to who didn't work at the same firm. I had a friend say to me one morning on the train, he said, "You change jobs the way we change bus." And I turned to him and I said, and he's still my friend to this day. I turned to him and I said, I called him by his name and I said, "I have no loyalty to nobody but myself and my kids. My name is not on the door. I am an at-will employee, and I'm going to take that will and find another job." And I did. And I didn't even have to look hard. So while I'm prepping my resume and looking for jobs and trying to decide, okay, what do I want to do? I was like, all right, I'm going to stick to this docketing clerk thing in the legal field, because now I'm not answering 100, 150 phone calls a day. I'm not doing as many emails. It's really autonomous. You get your work, you do your work, and nobody really bothers you. And I love that aspect about it. After work, I was done. I can leave at 5. There was nobody bothering me on the weekend. And that was great for me as now I'm a mom to a newborn. And so I was at home one day and I got a call from a recruiter. And this was during the lockdown. And she said to me, she saw my resume on LinkedIn and she thought it'd be great. She told me what the new firm was offering, but she had me at 100% employer medical. I mean, I'm saving almost $600 a month. I said yes. And I knew from the first interview that I was going to get the job. So I got the job. So now I went from making $65,000 a year, 72 with overtime. And so I put in my 2-week notice, which was really a 1-month notice. And my supervisor said to me, would I give them a chance to counter? Now, I knew I wanted to leave. So I said, yeah, make my day. Because this firm offered me $100,000. So I said, yeah, make my day. No e-filing. There was a lot of things that I was not going to do. They literally just wanted the docketing clerk, nothing extra, which means that, listen, we want you to work in this little box right here. We know you know all this stuff, but we want you to work like this. And we'll pay you this money to do that. Even the perks were better. So I said, okay, counter. You know what they countered with? It was not a counter. He pretty much told me, not pretty much, his words were, so you work a 35-hour work week, you work about 42, 43, sometimes 45 hours a week. I'm like, yeah, because I need the money. You can continue working that, and it will put you close to what you're going to get at this new place. And we'll see what your raise is going to be next time. I said, okay. I think I'm going to go ahead and just put in my 2 weeks. And I did. I thought it was so embarrassing what they were supposedly offering. And, I have a lot of contacts and people that I talk to, and family and stuff. And it's a running joke in my family that you can always expect me to be working for a new company. And I do that because you can always, there are 2 things I'm always willing to do. I'm always willing to make a sacrifice for the greater good, which means that if I'm working in a toxic environment and I want to leave because of my mental health, and when I say mental health, I used to hear the phone ringing in my sleep when I get off work. Like, an off day for me was never an off day because there's always someone texting, calling, something. I was always willing to go down by a couple grand and work in a better environment than go for more money and work in the same environment or even more toxic. But I was very lucky. So I went to the new firm and I took the COVID shot because now I had to go in the office 3 days, which was never a problem for me to go into the office. But it was hybrid. So I didn't want a 5-day in-office schedule, and that was okay. They agreed to that. And I went in making $95,000 a year, I think, with benefits 100% paid by the employer. And the firm that I was leaving said to me, how are they a smaller firm but affording to pay for the employees' medical? And I wanted to say, I don't know, but y'all should ask them because y'all firm is like 20 times bigger and y'all not doing that. But my response is, I don't know, but I'm going. And I did. They gave me a raise 2.5 months later that put me at the six-figure mark, and then I work overtime, which they didn't care. That put me over that six-figure mark. Um, and so 2 years later, I'm making double what I left my firm 2 years ago. And guys, if I didn't leave that firm, I wouldn't even be scratching the surface of $80,000 a year, which sounds good on paper, but that's not what you come home with. And had I not leave that job downtown Manhattan, I would not have been able to get a mortgage to buy land. I would not have been able to assist in refinancing our home twice, to get the loan to get the flower shop. And I would not have been able to now purchase a farm, right? Or a second home that has 45 acres. I would not have been able to do that. And I know that when you're with a company, first of all, you should not be with any company for longer than 3 years. All right. You are shorting yourself 30% increase every single time compared to the 3% that you might get. And every company who profited off the pandemic, who was saying that, oh, we have to moderately give raises just in case, are all vacationing in the summertime in the south of France with their family. I don't necessarily want a vacation in the south of France because they're assholes. But I'll vacation up in Puerto Rico on my farm or even right here in Queens. I'm not really much of a vacation person. Sometimes I dread spending all that money on a vacation and there's no return on my money. Don't worry, I'm working on that. But you have to have loyalty to yourself because these companies don't care about you. You have your skill, you're an at-will employee. When they fire you, you leave with nothing. Okay? And if you are not loyal to yourself and loyal to your family, in 30 years, I just read an article. I'm just going to divert for 1 second. I just read an article where a guy in California was at his company for 42 years. They gave him a barbecue, an office barbecue, which we know what that is, right? A gift certificate, and sent him on his merry way with a handshake like, thank you. And that's great. Admirable. Not me. I will not be with any company for 42 years. It must be my company. But no one is going to ever pay you what you're worth. Right? Even if you're making $250, you're worth more than that. So no company is going to pay you more than what you're worth, and no one cares about you more than you. So you really have to ask yourself, am I worth leaving to earn more, or am I going to be right here scared to go out there because I have this cushion called a job? Your job is not a cushion. It's hope on a string held up by clouds. Okay? You know what happens when the breeze blows too strong through a cloud? Exactly. So your loyalty should always be to you. And don't be afraid to change jobs to grow your bottom line, to get out of a financial jam, to better your family, to qualify for a mortgage, to increase your credit score, because it takes income to increase your credit, because you got to pay off the people in, right? If you want an increase in credit line, you have to prove that you're earning more than what you were earning before they gave you the credit for them to give you another $1,000, right? So have loyalty to yourself. If it's not working for you and it doesn't suit you and it's not going according to how you want it to go, change directions. And the direction is not necessarily going back to school. A lot of times people think that the answer is to go to school, get a degree, get another certificate, and jump into something. Yeah, I want to say go back to school, maybe get a certificate, where you go to some boot camp training for 6 months or 9 months, but never put tens of $1,000s into something that you won't get a return on. And definitely do not put your heart and soul into a company that when you die, like when my sister died, you're just like, oh, she's dead. Okay? Because you're all replaceable. We're all very, very replaceable. And I'm already looking to see what's out there, because I got goals and shit that I gotta reach. And in order to do that, I need income. I am in my second year at this company, and I don't know if I'm making year 3. I may or may not. I don't know. It all depends. I have a very short fuse when it comes to companies. I will hopscotch all over these jobs. Okay, like we playing Twister. I do not care. And I am telling you, I'm sharing that with you. So if you're out there, you're watching this, you're like, oh my God, I don't want to leave this job. I'm so comfortable. Are you? Really? All right, guys, until next time, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe. See y'all next time. Bye.